Understanding your trauma is not the same as changing your life. And I think one of the biggest traps in healing culture right now is the idea that if we just understand ourselves enough, we'll finally be free. If we can name the wound, name the pattern, name the trigger, name the thing beneath the thing beneath the thing, then somehow we'll be okay. But sometimes we're still living the exact same life. And if I had to say the whole episode in one sentence, it's this. Understanding may name the wound, but practice changes the pattern. Now, before I go any further, I want to be really clear about what I'm not saying. I am not talking about people in active abuse who are actively being trafficked, in active war, immediate survival mode, real-time crisis. Pain is real. Circumstances are real. Harm is real. I am not saying people create their own trauma. That is lazy, that is cruel, and it's just not true. I'm talking about what happens after, when the danger is no longer fully outside of you, but is still living inside your mind. It's still running in your body, and it's still shaping what you notice, expect, and react to. And that is a different conversation. It's the one that I want to have with y'all today. Welcome back to the Human OS, where we upgrade your internal operating system. I'm Story with 2 R's. I'm a singer, speaker, filmmaker, and someone who has spent a lot of time studying power, trauma, behavior, and what it actually takes to change, not just understand your life. Because a lot of people are self-aware. A lot of people are intelligent, maybe too intelligent. A lot of people can explain themselves beautifully, and they are stuck, and they can explain themselves out of ever changing. I think one of the reasons this topic matters so much is because we live in a very cerebral culture. We love language, labels, frameworks, books, podcasts, degrees, therapy, diagnoses. We love understanding. And don't get me wrong, I'm not anti-therapy. I'm not anti any of these things. I do all of the things. I've done 12-step groups. I've done over 7 years of therapy, DBR, EMDR. I've read self-help book after self-help book, and I am obsessed with understanding and knowledge. And understanding matters, but understanding is not transformation. Understanding can tell you what happened. It can even tell you why you are the way you are, but it does not automatically change the way your body reacts in real time. It does not change the way your synapses connect in your brain. It does not automatically stop you from shutting down when someone raises their voice or overworking because some part of you still thinks that rest is laziness. That's what I mean. So you can explain your wound perfectly and still be living from the pain that wound created like 30 years ago. And that's the problem. And I know this because I've done it many, many times. I've known things in my brain that I could not yet live in my body. I could articulate a truth. I could tell you exactly what the pattern was and then go and frickin' repeat it. Because awareness is one thing and practice is another. And wisdom is a whole other thing. And life doesn't care what you can explain. It responds to what you do, what you rehearse, what you repeat, what you do on a Tuesday when you're tired and triggered and nobody's clapping for you. That's where our life is. We often say that the world is man-made, which is partially true. But what I'm really pointing to is this. So much of our life is a mind-made reality. After doing Vipassana, I realized how little of what is happening is actually what is happening. Something happens, and then almost instantly we assign meaning to it. A look on someone's face, a text that didn't come, a tone, a silence, and in a split second, our system tells a story. not reality, a story. Honestly, that's part of why my name is Story. I love stories, and all of humanity runs on the stories we tell ourselves and the ones we tell others, and the ones we believe are truths. That story comes through memory, trauma, conditioning, fear, desire, and then that story creates a chemical reaction in the body, and that's when we react. And it all happens really quick. And maybe we shut down, maybe we ramble, maybe we get defensive, maybe we laugh when we're actually hurt, and then we think that we're reacting to reality, to the truth of what happened. But most of the time, we are reacting to the meaning we assigned to the reality. And that is a huge differentiation. People can say the glass is half full or half empty, and we know both are true. If you want to be hyperlogical, you could say the glass has 50% water, or 500 milliliters of water and 500 milliliters of air. Same reality, different emotional attachment. And this really matters because whatever meaning allows you to live a more fruitful, grounded, beautiful life, that's where we want to start building from. And I'm not saying delusion. I am petrified, actually, of being delusional. So I'm not talking about bypassing or fake positivity. I'm also not interested in worshiping the darkest possible interpretation just because my nervous system thinks that that's what's going to keep me safe. Because survival mode will always tell you to prepare for the worst. And if you've lived through real trauma, of course it does. It's trying to protect you. That's not a character flaw. That's adaptation. Thank you, adaptation. But that adaptation is not always freedom. And sometimes freedom sounds like saying to the little girl or boy inside you, hey, love, that thing isn't happening anymore. You do not need to prepare for the worst right now. You're safe. I'm here. I've got you. I saw this so clearly recently with a friend of mine. She had just gotten fired from a job and was really upset, distraught, understandably. She's been through a lot, and we went somewhere else to see if she could get work there. And I told her I'd go in with her. And the guy behind the counter asked her when she would want to start. A very simple question. He was basically giving her the job, and she could not hear it. And I'm watching this in real time as someone who in the moment is calm enough to see what's actually happening. I'm able to be objective. And she keeps talking, explaining, saying who had sent her, that someone told her to come and that she needed to speak to this person or that person. And meanwhile, this man had already asked her 3 times, when do you want to start? And finally, I didn't want to speak for her, but I jumped in and I said, immediately. She wants to start immediately, tomorrow if possible. And he gave her the job. We leave, and outside she says to me, oh my God, that guy, he was so weird. He didn't even answer my question. I had to ask him so many times. And I said, no, love, he did answer your question. You didn't answer his 3 times, and that's why I had to intervene. And that's what survival mode does. It doesn't just make you anxious. It edits reality. When your system is in fight or flight, you are not fully in the room. You are hearing through a filter, seeing through a filter, bracing for what just happened before it happens again. And so you miss what is actually here. That man was offering her a job, and her body was still inside of the last loss. And I think so many of us are living like that. I definitely know of many, many times I've done that, where I'm not in the room. I'm in some memory, fear, anticipating something, a story that I built. And then we wonder why life keeps confirming the same thing. It feels like a domino effect. And well, yes, because if your system is rehearsing danger and rejection and lack and abandonment and betrayal, you will keep noticing evidence of those things everywhere. Not because you're cursed, but because that's what the mind does. It looks for proof, and it keeps validating it. This is why I say that understanding your trauma is not the same as changing your life, because understanding is conscious, and only 10% of what we do is conscious, 90% is unconscious, and that's what is running us. You can know all the right words, where it came from, what your parents did, why you freeze, overwork, chase validation, sabotage intimacy, and still do it. I mean, it's on every t-shirt, on every cup, because transformation is not intellectual, it is experiential. It's practice, repetition, catching the loop in real time. We need to be active participants in our change. Do you notice the moment your stomach drops after a text? Do you notice the moment you go from that hurt to so quickly, I'm not lovable or worth anything? And that's the work. It's building enough safety in your body and your life that you can actually respond differently. That's why someone can read 40 books on boundaries and still have 0. Why someone can talk brilliantly about attachment and still choose people who are emotionally unavailable. Why someone can know they have perfectionism and still run themselves into the ground trying to earn their worth. That's me. Knowledge is not useless, but knowledge alone is not the thing. Understanding is a map, and practice is you walking on that path. And I think sometimes in healing culture, if I'm really honest, there's almost an obsession with understanding because it really does feel productive. It feels like movement, like you're doing something important. And sometimes we are, but sometimes we just got to get up and move and change shit. Sometimes we're just getting better at narrating the wound, better at intellectualizing it, better at sounding healed, but not actually being free. And that's hard to admit. We're all trying, you know. And I also think this is where a lot of people get confused about healing. They think that if they're still struggling, that they're failing. If they still feel low, then they must be failing. If they feel anger or grief or shame, they're failing. As if the goal is to become so healed that nothing touches or penetrates you anymore. I don't believe that. I think that's another fantasy, a very marketable one, but still a fantasy. And I think it actually creates a compression of emotions that create anger and aggression. Feeling isn't failure. That's life. We want to feel deeply. A fully expressed life is dynamic. It moves. There is tension and release, grief and joy, black, white, pink, purple, and yellow, and green and gold. The problem is not that we feel things. That's amazing. The problem is when we make those feelings mean something final about who we are. I feel shame, therefore I am shameful. I feel fear, therefore I am weak. I feel grief, therefore I am broken. I feel lost, therefore I'm failing. No, you are having a fully realized human experience. A feeling is a visitor. It is not your identity. And I think a lot of healing work goes wrong because people are trying to remove the dark instead of learning how to witness it without becoming it, knowing that it's a part of you, but not all of you. Nothing human is unworthy of being witnessed. And the parts of us we exile the hardest often run the deepest loops. The darkness is part of this beautiful thing we called life. In 2023, I was sick all of the time, like all the time, every single month. And not like, oh, like I want to stay in bed today kind of sick, like coughing, hacking for 3 weeks, and then better for 2 weeks, and then sick again. I was stressed. My body was wrecked. My allergies were reacting hugely. My reactions were huge. I was crying all the time. I was angry a lot. I was overwhelmed. And I genuinely did not realize how much my own mind was running me. So later that year, I was house sitting. I was watching a cat. And I went to bed really late, like at 4 a.m, my usual. But then I woke up around 7:30 a.m. and I was annoyed that I was awake. So I tried to go back to sleep. But the door behind me swings open. And sometimes the door would swing open because of the air pressure in the house. So I thought maybe I had just forgotten to block it the night before. I would always put my luggage against the door so that it wouldn't open. So I didn't get up. I just kept trying to get back into bed. And then this huge dark shadow, a demon, like flies in through the door and lands on top of my head. Its knees were behind my head. Its arms were in front of me. So it was like crouched over my head and I couldn't move. I tried to scream. I tried to open my eyes and I just couldn't. And it said to me, "You're scared, aren't you? You've been having a lot of nightmares, huh?" Then it said, "What I want you to do is get up and I want you to beat me. I want you to beat me until there's blood under your fingernails. I want you to beat me the way you beat yourself up." And so all of a sudden, I'm at the end of the bed, punching this shadow figure over and over and over as aggressively as I could until I woke up. And from that day forward, I made a decision. I was going to stop talking shit to myself all the goddamn time. Thank you, demon, because I would pass a mirror and say the most vile things to myself. That I was ugly, that I was old, that I was pathetic, that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't successful enough, that I wasn't where I should be in my career. Things I would never say to anybody that I love. Never to any of my friends. I probably wouldn't have any friends if I did. 2 weeks later, I went to do my 10-day Vipassana silent meditation retreat. And that really solidified things for me because I started to meditate every day. And I started noticing the loops and changing how I spoke to myself, creating some space between the event and the story, neuroplasticity, and creating new synapses. And in the 3.5 years since then, I have been sick only twice in 3.5 years. Twice, compared to every single month in 2023. So now, I'm not saying meditation is a miracle cure or anything. I'm not being like overly simplistic, but I'm saying the way that I was relating to myself was making me ill. My body was listening. My nervous system and my mind were listening. And when I changed the relationship, my life changed. Not overnight, not perfectly, but really, like I used to think the anger I was holding was somehow making me righteous. Like if I held onto enough rage, I would somehow be more loyal, more active to what happened to me, more moral, more awake, more of an ally. But it wasn't helping me create change. It was just making me sick and debilitated and unable to move. And now I actually think I'm far more useful to the world when I'm not in survival mode, when I'm not constantly finger pointing, when not everything is about me, when I can actually be present to what is actually needed for change. And that has been so powerful. And again, I want to say this very carefully because this nuance matters. This is not blame. This is not me saying, just think positive, just choose differently, just get over it. No. Pain can be inflicted. And some suffering is perpetuated. Knowing the difference changes everything. There are things done to us that should have never been done. There are losses that are catastrophic. There is pain that is real and human. But once you are safe enough, and that part really matters, there comes a point where continuing to rehearse demeaning becomes its own prison. And that is where responsibility comes in. Responsibility, ownership of our own lives, the ability to respond, the ability to say, this happened, and now what do I want to build from here? Not because you're weak, not because you are to blame, but because the mind will build a home out of whatever story it keeps repeating. And if the story is, I'm not enough, I'm not lovable, I'm behind, I'm unsafe, I'm broken, then that story becomes the architecture of your life. And that's why this matters, because at some point, real power is not controlling what happened. We can't control what happened. It is reclaiming authorship over what it gets to mean now and rewriting our stories to serve us. So if you're listening to this and you're like, okay, cool, but what do I actually do with this? Here's a simple practice. The next time you catch yourself in a loop, and I mean really catch it mid-spin, ask yourself 3 questions. 1, what story did I just tell myself? Not what happened, the story. Write it down. Voice note it, don't censor it. Follow the thread until you get to the sentence underneath the sentence, because the story isn't necessarily the truth. 2, what did I make that mean about me? That is usually where the charge is. Are you saying that I'm not enough, or not wanted, or behind, or unlovable? That's usually the wound talking. And that's where the root cause comes from. And then 3, who would I be in this moment? And how would the story change if I believed I was already enough, already lovable, already worthy, already okay, even if it hurts? And that question can change everything, because most loops are not really about the thing. They're about what touches that thing. And once you see that, you can work with it. Because if you are lovable and you are enough, then perhaps that thing, that story, is wrong, is dishonest in some way, is you being unable to listen to the real problem at hand, potentially, and will allow you to respond with clarity and compassion for both you and whoever you're engaging with. When you feel like you are enough, the story changes completely. You can breathe before you react, pause before you text back, choose not to abandon yourself just because somebody else disappointed you. That's not about you. It's about them. The goal is not to become a person who never hurts. The goal is to become a person who notices the loop faster, who comes back to the present moment sooner, who can feel something fully without building an identity around what that feeling means about them. Because that feeling is not you. It's a moment in time. A low note in a song that will soon change and become part of the whole song. And that is freedom. So yeah, understanding your trauma is not the same as changing your life. Understanding may name the wound, but practice changes the pattern. Experience is needed. If this episode landed for you, if it challenged you, if it gave you something to look at in yourself a little differently, please share it with someone who needs it. This is the Human OS. I'm Story. And please subscribe, share it around, and help me build this channel so I can keep giving you these nuggets and keep having bigger, deeper, more uncomfortable, and hopefully more liberating conversations. I'll see y'all in the next episode.